Good. Go ahead. Oops. 1 second, folks. I need it to hide it. Okay. We're good. Press escape. Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech shehakol nid b'varei. Amen. L'chaim, l'chaim, everyone. L'chaim. Tonight's learning is an honor and in the merit of our dear brothers and sisters in the Holy Land of Israel, in particular the IDF. Just got off the phone a couple of hours ago with my nephew, who was in Gaza. Now he's out for a couple of days, and he'll be back Erev Shabbos in Gaza. So to all of them, they should come back safely, securely, and of course, do what's needed in order to secure peace for the future. So we welcome everybody back for lesson number 3, the world of Kabbalah. And slowly but surely, you're all becoming great mystics, right? You're on your road to being trained. Today's discussion is going to take a fascinating yet mysterious subject, something you're probably all very familiar with, because we just had it in the Torah portion 2 weeks ago. Angels, right? And we've been discussing in Tanya about angels of late. Now, as Jews, we don't pray to angels, so we don't say my lucky angel, and pray to your angel. We don't do that. But yet it looms very large in our world. Every day we say in our prayers, Kadosh, 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 right? We're familiar with it, I'm sure. If you've been once to shul here, then you've heard us sing it over here, right? We repeat it not just once, but 3 times. Holy, 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 right? And this phrase is derived from the book of Isaiah, Yeshayahu the prophet, who was a prophet in the 7th century before the Common Era, and he had a mystical vision. If we look at text number 1, please, on page 74. Seraphim stood above to serve him, 6 wings to each one. And one called out to the other and exclaimed, Kadosh, 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 holy, 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 Hashem Tzavaos, Hashem, the God of hosts. The entire earth is full of his glory. Can you see the screen online, folks? Yes. Online.
No.
It's black?
No, we see a small, I think Tim said edit screen.
We have to dim the lights.
It's not the full screen.
No, it's not that. Why is it? Okay. All right, let's now try. Should be screen 2. Tell me if you see it. See it now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So Isaiah's vision. But why is this passage in our prayers? Why is it in Tanakh, and then from Tanakh we bring it into our prayers? Moreover, why are they called Seraphim, these angels? And what's the meaning of having wings? Now, of course, this is a metaphor for us to understand things, but we need to understand. So let us examine the Kabbalah map to reorient ourselves and what we've learned so far in three general categories. So, first lesson, we spoke about the world of Biyah, if you recall. You have this on page, no, actually, no. Have it in your book also? No? Right, you have it in the large, yeah. We had the three spiritual worlds that are in existence, independent, have a sense of self, right? Then last week we spoke about Atzilus, which is the manifestation of God with the specific attributes, the 10 divine attributes, the Sfirot, if you recall. We spoke about that. And we also learned that the 10 Sfirot, the 10 divine attributes, are what we call Elokus, godliness. Not God, but godliness, right? God has a first name and he has a last name, right? His first name is God. God, right? And godliness is an emanation of God. The world of Atzilus was an emanation, as we spoke about. God is beyond any kind of emanation, beyond any kind of attribute we spoke about. But yet, emanated from him, we spoke about last week, were 10 divine attributes, right? Recall? In today's lesson, we're going to go into another category. We're going to go into God's exaltedness, transcendence. Remember that word. Meaning, before there was spheros, the 10 divine attributes, right? The 3 intelligent, the 7 emotional that we spoke about last week. There's something that preceded that, right? That's what we're going to go. And not only are we going to go there, something that preceded intelligence and your emotions in ourselves, let alone in the divine order of things. Because everything we do, we want to understand the way it is in a divine order, but at the same time, how it reflects in the human condition, right? So we continue to build on the Kabbalah vocabulary. So now we need to become familiar with pre-spheros, pre any kind of specific definition of a power of God, of what we call godliness. Text number 2, please, from the Eitz Chaim, from the Arizal. Before Atzilus was emanated and before the creations were created, a simple divine light filled all of reality. It had no aspect of beginning or end. It is called Or Ein Sof, the infinite light. So what do we have over here? Something interesting. We have a term called light, or is light. And also, what are we calling it? Ein Sof, which means infinity. 2 crucial ideas here. On the one hand, light without an illumination a light has an illuminator, right? In other words, we have light in this room right now. There's a source of light. That's the illuminator. And light is inseparable from its source. The light has to come from its source, and it's, so to speak, connected to its source, right? The sun, the ray of the sun is connected to its source. I mean, it does take 8 minutes to get down here, right? But it is very much connected to its source. So this is what light is. Okay? So accordingly, what are we saying? If there's light and it's an infinite light, and therefore it has a source, what does that mean? That can only be godliness. It can't be God. Why? Because, no, this is infinite light. So why doesn't it make it God?
God cannot be infinite.
Because it has a beginning. It has a source. The light has a source. The illuminator. That's a source. It began somewhere. God doesn't begin somewhere, right? Although it's infinite. Once it is, it's an infinite light. So that's the paradox over here, right? It's got a beginning, but yet we call it an infinite light, or Ein Sof, or is light, meaning it has a place where it illuminated from, it has a source, and it's inseparable with its source, but therefore it makes it no longer can be defined as God. It can only be godliness. But what kind of godliness? An infinite type. Light. As opposed to, last week, 10 divine attributes, right? That are not, inherently infinite, shall we say. They're finite. They're the finite aspect of godliness. Now we're going into the infinite aspect of godliness. Okay? We're good? Got to put on your thinking caps. You have a hot, strong coffee if you need it, because we're in for a real strong ride. Okay? Good. So with that, we have now, let's go to the definition of Or Ein Sof. 3.1. It's in your book on page 75. God's infinite self-projection that is intimately connected with God's essence, right? God's essence is not what we're talking about, because God's essence has no what? No beginning, right? And if he has no beginning, for sure he has no end either, right? That's the uniqueness. Numbers have a beginning, but they have no end. There's only one thing that has no beginning. That's God, the essence of God. So now we're not talking about that level of the essence of God that has no beginning. We're talking about an infinite quality of godliness, as opposed to last week was a finite quality of godliness. Okay? This essence, that this is connected, this infinite self-projection of God transcends definition, limitation, and specific attributes. Therefore, it's not intellect, it's not emotions. Okay? We're good? Another common term that the Zohar uses to give us an understanding of what this is text number 3, please, from the Zohar. He encompasses all worlds. He fills all worlds. I have a cup over here. I have water in this cup that is filled in it. God fills the world like the water fills the cup, right? He fills the world. We get that. But at the same time, what does God also do? He encompasses the cup, the world. He's beyond it. When we say encompassing, we don't mean physically, right? He's not physically beyond, because he's not a physical thing, but he is transcendent and not bound by the contours of the world, like the waters to the contours of the mug, right? Is that clear? So when we speak about God's transcendence, his infinite, is that the way he fills the cup? Fills the world? No, that's limited. It means the way he transcends, he encompasses. In Hebrew, it's called Sovev Kol Almin, right? Here we have that term, 3.2. You have it in your book, 77. God, as he transcends the emanation of Sfirot and the creation of Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya. Is that clear? As opposed to the way God, Mamale Kol Almin, fills all the worlds. God, as he emanates the Sfirot and actively creates Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya. In other words, he's in it, not beyond it. Okay? We're good? Okay. Now, armed with these terms, now we can explain Isaiah. We spoke about Bia in lesson 1, right? What was Bia, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya? No one here asked me the question, what goes on in those worlds? Who's there? Well, do you know who's there? Souls and angels. in those worlds. That's what's there, right? And that's what Isaiah said. He beheld the angels in the world of Bria. And what did he call them? Anybody remember the term? Srafim. Why did he call them Srafim? The word means to burn. Lisrof in Hebrew, if those are familiar with Hebrew, Lisrof means to burn. Because they have a burning desire to cleave to God. There's such a passion, such a burning desire to cleave to God. Now, does that surprise anybody? Does that bother you, that notion?
But Rabbi, when they created that way, they must have created them that way, as opposed to
okay. Well, yes, he did, but well, he did. Well, we'll get to that in a moment. Okay, he did. So but why would they have a burning desire? Why do they have a burning? Well, I gave it away because they have a burning desire. When are you burning to cleave to God? Is because you are lacking something, right? Like in a love song. A love song speaks about the burning desire of the lover wants his beloved, and he has a burning desire to cleave to his beloved. Why? Because he or she doesn't have them at the moment. So there's a desire to have something you don't have. Right? But wait a second. As Menachem Hillel said, well, didn't God create them with their nature? And isn't their nature in the world of Bria that they're aware of God? They're in the world of Bria. They're the highest form of angels. So they're aware, intimately aware of God. So what are they burnt up in a desire for what? What's their passion about? So let's look at text number 4. The Alter Rebbe says, the lofty angels of Bria are called Srafim from the word to burn, due to the flaming passion to gaze at the king's glory. At Soviv Kolamin. Oh, what was Soviv Kolamin? God's transcendence, right? The state of godliness encompasses all the world, which is separate and transcended. Kadosh. And that's why they proclaim Kadosh. Kadosh means holy. Holy means separate. They are sensing God's exaltedness, his transcendence, how he's separate, way beyond. And they have a burning passion and desire to cleave to that, to connect to that. Is that clear? Now we have the next term. Oh, 1 second. We have 2 postures over here. We have the way God fills the world. What does that mean? When you notice, you pick up a leaf. For one leaf, you could notice God's presence in this world. A forest, even more so. Right? You can note it. The makeup of the human body, everything. God fills the world with his great wisdom, and we can sense his presence and recognize him in this world. But then there's also a way that God transcends creation, that he's beyond what we can experience with our 5 senses, right? So let's give a metaphor for this to appreciate. Last week, if you recall, we spoke about Sir Isaac Newton, right? Fascinating individual. And we spoke about how he can take a lofty idea of his and bring it down to high school students, or, compared to his great intellect, exceedingly removed. But he can bring down that idea to them. Now imagine one of those students, this parable, a metaphor, right? Gets it. Oh, wow, that was really fascinating. And realizes that they just got a little tidbit. Now, if that person is curious and that person is by nature curious, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? They're going to want more. Ooh, there's something here. I know there's something beyond what I got, and I want that. I want that. They're going to eagerly have a desire for something more of his teachings, right? Does that make sense, right? So that's the Srafim. The Seraphim, they sense God in the world of Bria. And that world is it's a world, it's separate from God. So they sense a connection, but they sense their connection is very limited. And they're burning up in a passionate desire for something way beyond them. They get a little snippet, they get a little, tidbits, they get a little morsel, but they want more. They're not satisfied.
You look at it the other way, where God wants to cleave to his creation and the soul, so he has a burning desire to look after them and to the seraphim.
But the angels are called seraphim. We don't call God that, right? I mean, there's a truth to what you're saying, but we're going to leave that for the moment. But that's not what the angels are called seraphim, not God, right? So those angels are right, but it does reflect also God's desire for us. But we're going to leave that for the moment, okay? Because that's a different point, not the point here. Okay, so I don't want to digress on that. But it's true. It's not incorrect what you're saying, but not to the point here, though, because the angels are called that. Okay. So now this explains the metaphor of the wings. Let's go to text number 5, please. The Seraphim say Kadosh. Why do they say Kadosh? Folks? So what? So? Meaning? Give me one word. Transcendence. Kadosh means there's something transcendence, and they are recognizing, and therefore that's why they're saying it. Okay? Kadosh means holy. Holy means transcendent, beyond. And they recognize from the little morsels they got in Bria, there's something way beyond, something much more. Right? So because they comprehend God's transcendence, that's why they have 6 wings. They are in a constant state of rising upwards in all directions. And you know what? When we pray and we say Kadosh, what do? We pick up our heels. Why? Because we're being uplifted. In other words, there's the sense of us. We are the embodiment of the Seraphim in that sense that we are being uplifted. In other words, to gaze on the transcendence of God, to aspire for higher and higher.
Aspire for what?
Aspire for higher and higher. Okay? Give me one moment. I think we need a little more air in here. Do we need more air? I think we need more air now. Yeah. Okay. Good, folks? Yeah? Chaim. Okay. So now we can appreciate the history and the meaning of this passage and why we recite it every day. Let's be honest, folks. Most of the journey of life, we live with our 5 senses, right? Which is, therefore, the connection that we're going to start is with God, how he fills the world, right? Because how he fills the world, when I look at a leaf, I see the symmetry, I understand, the botany a bit, and I understand that there's something great wisdom that's here. But that's all, what I understand with my mind, what I see with my eyes, and so on, right? From the beauty and the complexity of the universe. And sometimes, by the way, life isn't because we see the beauty. Sometimes because we feel empty. We feel empty inside because we haven't found significant meaning and purpose. And we want to find something. And purpose and meaning is where? Beyond us. We don't create purpose. We fulfill purpose. Right? So in both instances, whether it's you're living and seeing God's beauty within the world, or you're feeling the lack of that connection and lack of of inspiration, a lack of meaning, that will drive us should drive us for more, something transcendent. What is that? The way God is Soviv Kolamin, right? That it brings us, that we can sense that there's something more to life than what I am engaged in. And that's why we say every day what the angels say. Just as they have a burning passion for more, the world that we live in, we should not be sucked into it or just going through, and appreciating the beauty of the world. That's not sufficient. We have to transcend. We have to pick up our feet, kadosh, 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 3 times to recognize that we need to seek more, right? We need to seek more. We don't want,
What is more?
Oh, we're going to get there. Yeah, we're going to. First, we need to know we need to seek more, right? Then what is that more? Good question. Excellent question. Okay. Are we good so far? How are we doing? Following? Yeah? Online, everybody, we're following good? All right. Okay. So we're saying angels are looking for more transcendence, and so should we. So what is this transcendence, right? How do we know that we have touched something transcendent? How do we know that? Good question, right? So now that we've explained Kadosh, 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 we're going to go to another famous prayer that I'm sure all of us are familiar with. Please go to text number 6 on page 82. Right, I think by the rally they even sang this. Well, yeah, Yishai Rebo. So may he who makes peace in his heavens make peace for us and all of Israel, and say Amen. Osei shalom b'mramav hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Right? That's a very deep request that we have. Actually, we say 3 times a day in the Amidah. And we are saying it many more times now because of what's going on in Israel. So we understand, sorry. Oops. So God, he's making peace. So the request is that God make peace for us and all of Israel. Okay, we're good for that. No one's arguing that. We want that, right? That's the only reason why we fight, is in order to maintain and to have peace, right? As opposed to others. What does it mean that he makes peace in heavens? Who's fighting in heaven? Who are the warring factions in heaven that God's making peace up there? What's going on? Huh? Good question, huh? So in the previous lesson, we spoke about the various spheros, divine attributes in the world of Atzilus, right? We zeroed in on Chesed, Gvura, Chesed, indiscriminate giving, Gvura, very discriminating, refraining, perhaps entirely of giving. And then we observe how Tiferes consists of blend and a compromise of the two. Right? But if you look now at the spheros, you're going to see something interesting. Oops. You look over here, you'll see in this map of the 10 spheros, there's 22 different types of connections that can be made. 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet, right? And each sphera connects with another sphera in different manners, right? Kabbalistic terminology, this is called hitkalalut. Hitkalalut means incorporation, inclusionary. They think they made up the word, to be inclusionary, just in the last few years. No. This is a Kabbalistic terminology. It means the intermingling and the harmonization of the godly sphirot, of the 10 of them, right? This is nothing new for us Jewish people. So this synthesis in the world of Atzilus, we shouldn't take for granted. Let me explain. Chesed, what is chesed? Kindness. What kind of kindness? I said it already. Indiscriminate. Without any limitation. Right? Very indiscriminate. Right? It's your birthday and the drinks are on me and you're giving to everybody, even your enemy. That's indiscriminate giving. Right? Even to the person who's a billionaire who could pay for his own drink many times over. But, right, so how does chesed, as it's on its own, feel about gvura? Being very discriminating and very judging. It's antithetical to it. How could they coexist? How do the two coexist? It doesn't make sense.
Complement.
No. Imagine your DNA had only one chromosome, Y chromosome, and someone else had only an X chromosome. You're antithetical to each other, right? Imagine your DNA was only chesed, right? Where will it come, the notion that you could live with gvura and vice versa? It doesn't. They don't come together. In other words, there has to be something greater than each force that will bring them together. And here we have another parable. Text number 7, please, from the Alter Rebbe. The synthesis of the 10 spheres, especially those that are opposite, such as Chesed and Gvura, is made possible through the agency of a supernal light that transcends. Look at that word, transcend. Take note, the characteristics of the spheres. Upon sensing the supernal light, the spheres experience bittul. They relinquish their configuration and synthesize with each other. Consider the example of 2 government ministers who are hopelessly opposed to each other. When they must appear together before the king, they remain who they are with their preferences, but find themselves working with opposing viewpoint to reach a required consensus. This is the consequence of the state of bittul, self-effacement, that results from their overwhelming trepidation and the awe of the king's majesty, whose rank by far transcends, again, the word transcends, their own. Similarly, the opposite force of Chesed and Gvura in Atzilus can synthesize due to the illumination of the great infinite light of Or Ein Sof. Or Ein Sof is transcendent. What is Chesed? Memale, filling the world, right? Fills the world. And it fills its world with only the indiscriminate giving. How could it work and synthesize with anything else but itself? Because it stands before the king, metaphorically, or Ein Sof, which is transcendent, greater than the two, and therefore there creates that light, a synthesis of 2 opposites. Does that make sense? Is that clear? Ari? Yeah, that was good? Mm-hmm. Go ahead. Well, yes. It's I'll explain soon. Good question. Excellent question. Excellent question. Yes, Menachem Hill, you had.
No.
Oh, okay.
It's going to take some time. It's okay.
Yes, we're a work in progress. We all are. Yes. Okay. So again, the parable of the ministers, each sphere embraces its definition. They sensed Or Ein Sof as he transcends any definition and therefore incorporates two opposites together.
So this relates to Oseh Shalom Bimoma.
We'll get there. I'll bring you there. Don't take yourself there. That's where you trump. That's where you trip.
Okay.
Don't want you to trip. But you'll see. Okay. So it's when you think about it, it's quite a paradox. The transcendence, does it care about the details of the the enmity between the king cares about the enmity between two ministers? He's beyond it, right? Or Ein Sof is transcendent of the spheres, and yet what does it do? It makes sure that there's proper function of the spheres, that they could work in synthesis, right? As the king does with his ministers. With that, now we can understand why God makes peace. Hu ya'as, right? He who makes peace in his heavens, because in heaven, it doesn't work. Heaven and Atzilus, it won't work unless there's something greater than Atzilus that can bring those divine attributes to work in synthesis, that they should intermingle and be able to work together. That harmonization right? Keser is the crown. The crown is above the head. It's beyond the person, transcending the person, as in the metaphor of a king, right? And Tiferes is, as Jonathan, you asked about Tiferes, which is harmony, results from sensing God's infinity. So Keser is the crown that's beyond the 10 attributes. That reflects itself in Tiferes, which is the harmony within the system, right? So in other words, Tiferes gets its power from Keser. That clear? Here we have a new term, Keser, crown, godliness that transcends the spheres, that enables the harmonization. And where's that harmonization going to work? It's going to work within the system through Tiferes, which is Chesed and Gvura we had in last week, if you recall, and Tiferes was in the middle shooting up to the top, to Keser. Are we good?
There's always opposites, and Keter brings it together.
Right.
Throughout the skill.
Exactly. Like the king brings the two ministers together, right, where they have enmity between them because each one, feels their importance and what they want to do, right? How does this play out in a human way? A perfect place it works, something called marriage. Marriage, by the way, as we will see now, is not a good idea. It's a godly idea. It's a godly idea, not a good idea. A godly idea, marriage. It's divine. How divine is it? Well, what do you have? Two people that are complete opposites, right? You have two people that are complete opposites. You have in the relationship, you have observably a body-based relationship between husband and wife, but unobservably, there's a much deeper relationship, and that is a soulful relationship, the connection that's there, right? On a soul level. And on that soul level, what did we speak about last week? Everybody's soul is rooted above in a different manner. a different root source in the divine above, right? Men and women are completely from the opposite sides, right? As far as Mars and Venus are distant from each other, men and women are much more distant from each other in the divine order of things, right? And yet, what are they meant to do? To merge as soulmates. How's that possible? How's that possible that they should merge? And we see that it's not so advisable today with over 50% divorce rate, right? How do they merge? So let's look at the solution for this is from the Alter Rebbe. Text number 8, please, on page 85. The bride and the groom are opposites. They unite as one. They require an infusion of higher energy that shines from a degree of divinity that transcends their differences. This is significance of the leading the bride and the groom under the chuppah that hovers above both of them equally and is positioned at a height above them. It corresponds to the encompassing light of Soviv Kolamin of Keser, of the crown that's beyond them. Right? You look additional features of marriage. That's the chuppah, the veil. Also, the woman, there's something greater than her. She is veiled, right? She circles the man again, bringing that concept of something that is transcendent. The ring is round. Round that has no beginning, no end. Also, concept of transcendence. He's giving that, she veils herself. He gives the ring. That's his transcendence. Each one has to give of their transcendence to this union. And even the celebration is done by dancing. Dancing in a circle. That's the Jewish way. Why? Again, bringing out that this whole matrimony, this whole union is one of transcendence because that's what's going to keep the marriage alive. Because it's two opposites. Just like the two ministers need a king over them, we need the chuppah, our King, God Almighty, over the husband and wife. And just as Ish is spelled Aleph, Yud, Shin, with a Yud, and Isha is Aleph, Shin, Hey. They both have the word Aleph, Shin. She has the letter Hey. Yud and a Hey is God's name. You have God in the relationship, something that you transcend beyond yourself, then you will have a healthy relationship. Then there'll be peace. There'll be peace in the home. Take out God from the relationship, the Aleph and the Yud and the Hey from man and woman's name, both words are left with the word Aish, which means fire, a double fire that is destructive. In other words, the point that we're bringing out over here, right, is that we're talking about transcendence over here, right? Transcendence means that there has to be something greater than self that allows you to make room for someone else. Like I say to people, how do you know when you're ready to get married? When you're bored with yourself, when you're fully enamored with yourself, there's no room for someone else. When you're bored with yourself, then there'll be room for somebody else, right? Then there's room for another. Like, the guy who goes out with the girl and he's a truly accomplished guy. And for 2 hours, he's speaking about all of his, and that wasn't even one word of a bluff. All accomplishments. After 2 hours, it's enough me speaking about myself. Tell me, what do you think of me? That guy's not ready for marriage because he's just full of himself. There isn't room for another. In other words, there's no what? Which means Bitul allows for, come on, transcendence. Transcendence. Get that word, transcendence. That's how you can have soulmates coming together because they can transcend themselves through Bitul.
Is there a word in Hebrew for that? Transcendence?
Huh?
Is there a word?
Kedusha. Kadosh, kadosh, kadosh. Right? That's transcendence. Huh?
More?
So when we are so objects in this world, they're created, they erode, and eventually they demise. You have a metal flute, eventually it's going to erode, and you're going to put it into recycled. Human beings, on the other hand, born as a creation, you get married, and you know what you do? Bring more creations in this world. Marriage itself, the concept of marriage, is also an act of transcendence, because transcendence we defined as or Ein Sof, limit, a light that is limitless. Potentially, our lives can be limitless because through marriage, we have a child that has a child that has a child forevermore, right? And as the whether you do or not, right? That's the idea. Is that clear? So, therefore, for the lasting of the marriage, to find peace, as God makes peace on high, we have to make peace down here. And the peace that we make over here is that we're able to embrace the personal differences and allow your conscious mind to sense that your soul already senses. And you know what your soul senses? The union, coming together. So what your soul senses, we should become aware, and that will be the peace that we create by the transcendence of being in touch with your soul, to allowing you to create that peace that God does up there. We do it down here. Okay. Now, as we mentioned, everything in this course we speak about up there, but we want to mirror it, which we already did now with marriage, right? But we didn't yet bring it to the point of what we're talking about. Talk about Or Ein Sof, a light that's limitless, right? We're talking about transcendence, right? Soivav Kol Almin. How does it all play out in my soul? And by the way, yours too. Okay. Okay. So, I'm missing some. Yeah. Oh, okay. So before, my apologies. Before we do that, you want to see a recap on everything, or should we save the video for later because we're running short on time? You want to recap? Who wants to recap?
Yeah.
Who doesn't want to recap?
Well, as long as we see.
Welcome to the third episode of the World of Kabbalah, our journey through the mystical realms of the Kabbalistic system. In previous episodes, we discussed various worlds, worlds of independence, and the divine world of the Sefirot. The common denominator is that all worlds are finite zones. But Kabbalah also discusses a reality that transcends limitation, God's infinite light, or Ein Sof. Here's the catch. Yes, the infinite light transcends the Sefirot, but it's also crucial to their functioning. Let's look at 3 of the Sefirot. Chesed is the impulse to share generously, whereas Gevura is restraint and discipline. We know from our own lives that healthy living means balancing the two, which is the role of Tiferet, a compromising blend of Chesed and Gevura. Kabbalah discusses other Sefirot blends as well. Sefirot diagrams typically show 22 inter-Sefirot channels representing unique Sefirot blends. That process is called Hitkalalut. But this synthesis should not be taken for granted. After all, each Sephira is unidimensional. Imagine if you personified Chesed. It was the only ingredient in your DNA. Would you tolerate an opposing impulse? No. So we can easily imagine a scenario in which each Sephira has blind patriotism for its own configuration and definition, where it would be impossible for the Sefirot to collaborate. But that didn't happen. And here's a parable to explain why. Imagine a monarch who has 2 ministers engaged in endless arguments. The defense minister demands a formidable army, while the finance minister desires a stable economy. When summoned before the king to present a viable solution to challenges facing their nation, their reverence for the throne diminishes their rivalry, and they collaborate harmoniously. They are now able to devise a plan that strikes a delicate balance, ensuring the stability of both the treasury and the military. In a similar way, because the Sefirot sense, or Ein Sof, how God transcends the entire concept of limitation, they shed the rigidity of their characters. They are empowered to overlook their identities to collaborate with the other Sefirot. Now, you might wonder, how does all this relate to us? Well, this concept is one of Kabbalah's keys for marital harmony. Marriage has 2 dimensions: the unity of bodies, the tangible relationship between husband and wife, and the unity of soul, their invisible but powerful soul bond. But considering that each soul is rooted in a different Sefira, how do 2 souls unite as one? The answer is based on the collaboration of Sefirot. Soul fusion works when each soul, like its root Sephira, senses God's transcendence of all particular characteristics. This awareness empowers a soul to transcend its individuality and to merge with another soul. That happens as bride and groom stand side by side under the chuppah. So, to enhance a marital harmony, remind yourself, my soul was unable to unite with my spouse's soul until it sensed divine infinity. Why don't I allow that process to continue in my conscious life as well? I can embrace my own personality and views, and also try to sense what my soul already experienced, that God transcends all personalities and views. This embrace of God's transcendence empowers me to be open to additional perspectives, which will advance my collaboration, connection, and cohesion with my soulmate.
Beautiful. Beautiful. It was worth it. At least I enjoyed it. Okay. So now we're going to see how it mirrors in us. The concept of Ein Sof, Soivev, transcendence, beyond. So we learned in lesson 1 about one word, levushim, garments of the soul, thought, speech, and action. Lesson 2, we spoke about the powers of the soul, right? The 10 powers of the soul that are divided into intellect and emotions. Today we go deeper, closer to the core. Just as God is not his Sephiros, likewise we are not our 10 powers of the soul. We are something greater than that. Text number 9, please, from the Alter Rebbe. Once again, author of the Tanya. The soul itself is simple, undefined light that transcends, there's that word again, the division of intellect and emotions. So is it possible that we can observe something about me and access something more profound that seems to be abstract because it's not about intellect, not about emotions? How does that play out in human life? So Chassidus says, of course we can. There is a deeper dimension of the soul. And what is that? What do you think that is? In one word, it's called desire. Desire. The word for desire in Hebrew is ratzon. Ratzon is also the same letters, spells tzinor, which is a pipeline. What does it mean it's a pipeline? It's a channel. The will is a channel to what? From what to what? From the essence of the soul. It's a channel, the will, and it's also a channel, a pipeline to what? To my intellect and emotions and my thought, speech, and action.
Rabbi, can you just go over that again?
Ratzon means will, desire. It also spells the word tzinor, the same letters, because it's a conduit, it's a pipeline. It's a conduit from the essence of the soul to now the transcendence of the soul. It is from the transcendence of the soul also a pipeline, a conduit to the powers of the soul, my intelligence and my emotions. That makes sense? Well, just take it, follow the yellow brick road, you'll get there. Okay? We put in our own 2 cents right now, we're going to trip up. Okay? Not a problem to do once we understand what we're learning. And as we always say, leave the baggage at the door. Whatever you know, deposit it, and you can pick it up later. Because this way, you'll be open to understanding new stuff. Okay, text number 10. The Tzemach Tzedek says, the grandson of the Alter Rebbe. The Hebrew letters that spell ratzon, desire, also spelled tzinor, pipeline. Just as a pipeline is employed to channel something, so does the human will channel the soul to a particular matter. So, to appreciate why desire is so deep-rooted in the soul, more than intellect, because if you think for a moment, maybe not. Because maybe what I desire is based on my intellect and emotions, right? So if anything, then it becomes lower than my desire. My desire is lower and my intellect is greater because it shaped my desire. Correct? But here we're saying, no, desire is transcendent, it's greater. Because we need to understand there's 2 types of desire. Text number 11, okay? We're good? I told you this is going to be a tough class. You got to be really focused. One type of human desire is referred to as a born desire because it's brought into being at a particular time. It is also referred to as a lower desire because its position is beneath that of intellect, what I just mentioned, right? He explains, such a desire takes shape only after we strongly contemplate a particular matter. Without this, we will not experience any desire toward that matter. By contrast, when we think deeply about it, whether it's a specific food, an item of clothing, a financial issue, a lucrative business deal, that then a desire for that thing is born within us. This type of desire is called a midah, which means measured or limited. For the desire born from intellectual knowledge and contemplation is measured desire, limited to the specific rationalization that created it. Consequently, when the logical basis for this desire ceases or becomes irrelevant, the desire toward that matter will similarly disappear. Good? Makes sense? Simple. There is, however, a second type of desire referred to as a higher desire. This desire is limitless. It is simple desire that transcends intellect and is not born from it. Instead, it's a natural desire that relates to our very selves. For example, a father's love for his offspring that are an extension of his essence, a mother's compassion for the child that which she bore. These are natural desires that are entirely transcend intellect and reason. So certain tendencies we have are baked into our very DNA, into the very DNA of our very soul. They're instinctive desires. They don't require, I need to think about it. No thinking. It's your child, not thinking about it, right? That love that the parent has for the child. What's another example? The desire to live, right? Contemplate that. God forbid if you do, that's a very sick person, right? Not a healthy individual. But you don't need to calculate, okay, I'm going. No. Chassidus says the desire for a home is instinctual. It's part of our DNA, arguing that an innate desire that we have a place we call our own, where we feel we belong, right? Where we have our personal identity reflected, right? Where because of our self-expression that is in our home, not a house, but a home, right? On a spiritual level, what is innate? Those were all non-spiritual things. A love for a parent, for a child, right? For life, that's all physical. A home, that's all physical. What's spiritual? We have an innate desire for a relationship with God. This is innate. Not something you have to necessarily, think about to get there, right? We might, after we know that it's innate post de facto, to try to rationalize it and understand it, right? That desire, as we would maybe for a home, right? But that's not why you want a home, because of the rationalization, because there's something innate in the person that they want a home. Same thing as with God. Afterwards, you might rationalize it because maybe your friend, might think you're into voodoo magic, so you need to rationalize it. But no, innate desire, it's there. Period. Right? So what does it mean that's an innate desire? It means it transcends what?
Physical.
It transcends what? Intellect.
Reason.
Intellect. Yeah. It transcends intellect and emotion. Right? Sorry? But that now we can understand is why desire, innate desire here, at least what we're talking about so far, relates to Or Ein Sof, the limitless light of godliness, right? Why? Because an innate desire is constant, it's immune to variations of life, and actually causes all other parts of life to fall in line. That's infinite-like. Correct? Beyond intellect, sways intellect, constant, infinite life. Correct? That's the higher form of will. Right? Sure.
Clarify, so if there's one intellect desire, and there's one that is an instinctual desire.
Two different things. Well, I mean, they're both desires, but they come from different places, right? The instinctual innate one is just because, right? And the other one is because we think about it and we, like this business deal sounds good. So I want the deal because it looks like it's going to be lucrative, right? I want to go to this school because going to this school. I'm going to get this professor for this course that I want because it's going to get me further. So that's not innate. It's a means to an end. Do you have a desire? Yes. Only as far as it will get you what, is that clear? So one is deeply rooted. The second one will be, again, someone gave you a tip on a stock and it looks good, so you're going to go for it. But it's based on something. It's not inherent. They're both called Ratzon, mind you. They're both called intellect, even this one, right? Why? Because even though it's a will as a means to something, but it's a means to that something that is also something that you want, right? So do you, as I speak about the proverbial chasing the bus, if you ever see somebody chasing a bus, they miss the bus, go up to them and say to them, that's really a nice, a wonderful custom that you have. I see running after the bus. I don't run after bus. I don't have such a custom. So what are you running after the bus then? It's because I wanted to get on the bus. Oh, so that's what you're into, getting on the bus. No, I'm not interested in getting on the bus. I just need to get to work. Oh, so you're not interested to run after buses, not interested to get on a bus. You just want to get to work. Okay, that's what you're into, getting to work. I'm interested in getting to work. I have to get to work, so at the end of the week, I'll get a paycheck. Now I know. Here is with the Hund is Bagraben. This is where, that's what you're all about. That's what you want, a paycheck. That's it. No, I'm not even interested in paycheck. I have a family that I love and care for, right? So we have all these external wills, right, that push us, but internally, it's bringing us to what we really want. I want to take care of my family, so that's why I run after a bus. That's why I get on a bus. That's why I go to work on time, and that's why I get a paycheck, so I can take care of what I really want, my family, right? But they're both wills. One is external that leads to something, and one is inherent. Is that clear? Yeah, we're good. Well, if we're good, that's amazing. Now, with this, we can appreciate something. Did you ever experience for yourself or do you see in others that they create a goal and they don't fulfill that goal? They don't fulfill that goal.
Just others.
Just others, not yourself, just someone else. How would you respond to that person? What would you say to them? So, 3 ways, perhaps. You're still worthy. You're a good guy. Okay, you didn't achieve what you wanted to, but you're still a good guy. Or maybe that's not what you should have done. Try something else. Maybe that's not your line of work. Then maybe that's not your purpose in life. But based on what we're learning over here, maybe the response be that there's nothing stands in the way of desire. Why does nothing stand in the way of desire? Anybody? What is desire? It's the transcendence of my soul, right? It is the limitlessness of my soul. It's the capacity that if I really want something, I can achieve it, right? That's the chassid, Rabbi Yekusa Lepler, a chassid of the second Lubavitcher Rebbe, was an average individual, but it bothered him. Average in intelligence, and it bothered him greatly. He came to the Rebbe. He said he wanted to learn and to know and to let it affect his brain and his head. So he told him, there's nothing that stands before your will. If you really want it, you can have it. He broke himself. He worked on himself. Why? Because the will was powerful. So if you have two people, one who has strong will but not such a strong mind, someone with a very good mind but not a good strong will, usually the one with the strong will outshine the one with the great intelligence. Because intelligence is something from within, and will is something beyond and transcendent. And especially, and it's something that is transcendent.
Rabbi, so it's the case where not everyone has a strong will or could aspire to have a strong will.
Ah, very good question. Excellent question. So, we're going to get there in a moment. But before we do that, let's go to page 15, please. Text 15. Just to bring out this idea. Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov was once sitting with his students in a synagogue engaged in Torah study or prayer. In a nearby street, a man was passing with a wagon, and due to the thick mud on the road, the wagon got stuck. The man approached the window of the synagogue where the Baal Shem Tov and the students were sitting and requested their assistance in extracting the wagon from the mud. Students replied that they did not have the strength to assist because the wagon was heavy and the mud was deep. The man responded in Ukrainian, "Mojish dani choshich," which means you can, but you don't want. In other words, you have the ability, but not the will. And without the will, you imagine that it is too much for you. Afterwards, the Baal Shem Tov explained to his students that what they had heard was not a coincidence, but a lesson for serving God. When Jewish children set out to study Torah, and the same is true with Jewish adults, they may feel that they are unable to do so due to fatigue. They need to remember, Mojish don chodshish. God gives us the strength to do all good things. It's just that we sometimes listen to the voice of the negative inclination within us and then lose the desire, the transcendence, to act accordingly. At that point, we falsely believe that we are incapable. So this is then what brings the idea into focus, considering points already made in this course. Lesson 1, we learn that we have control over the garments of the soul called levushim in Hebrew, right? Our thought, speech, and action, regardless of our personality. We can choose to do what we want, say what is appropriate, and even think properly. We can choose those things. In lesson 2, we spoke about the need to identify with the soul-based strong points of your soul, right? What is your unique talent based on your soul quality, right? We also noted that you also have a back burner in your soul that it's not so strong, not so prominent, and you have to develop that aspect of your life too, and those traits, right? That's what we spoke about last year. Now we are learning today that the only way to accomplish these goals is by first wanting them and wanting them strongly. So we have Biyah, the three worlds. We have Atzilus, but they're all based on Ein Sof, the Or Ein Sof, which reflects the Ratzon, the will that I have. With that, we need now to reflect. We're going to reflect for a few moments. Folks, did you hear before the audio from the video online? Yeah? The video before that I played, can you just say yes or no?
What was the question?
No,
Yes, it worked.
For online. We have people online.
It worked. It worked.
Okay, perfect. Because I'm gonna now. So today, as last week, we played a Hasidic melody. We're gonna play now a Hasidic melody, and that gives us a time to meditate, to contemplate. What are the things in my life that I want? Are they the things I really should desire? Or are they things maybe that I shouldn't so much desire? And to think about it, and think about those things that I really should desire, or that I need to desire more strongly, and to devote myself to them, that I can then take, as we said, those aspects in the uniqueness of my quality of my soul, the powers of my soul, the ones that I need to work on, that I might be shying away from, and then how that expresses itself and also in my thought, speech, and action. So, Hamid, do you mind the lights just to put off for a moment? No, another one. Okay, that's good. It's good. Beautiful, maybe. You can't close your eyes. And you can sing if you know. All right. Yeah. Okay. Lights. Lights, cameras, action. Oh, I could sing that for the rest of the night. Overnight. That melody, last week's melody. We'll speak more about that in the future. Very powerful. So we might have a little of a conundrum right now, but maybe after that melody, not. And that is, I asked you to think about the things that you should desire, right? And the things that we shouldn't desire. But there was a problem there. Maybe it's something you should desire, but what happens if you don't? So we spoke about an innate desire, that's something beyond us, transcends us, right? It's a given. But then there's a desire that is not a given. And actually, we could generate it. And that's based on our intelligence. Chachma, Ina V'das, right? What is Chachma? Chachma comes from the word koachma, the two words, the potential of what? In other words, what is that? Transcendence. It's intelligence, the source of intelligence, it's the transcendence of intelligence. It's the seed of an idea that has not yet come to fruition. It's the seed merely, right? A seed needs to grow into the tree. But a seed has the potential of the tree, but it's not a tree yet, right? But first is Chokhmah, right? That we need to be able to have the idea that is something of transcendence that's beyond us, that we now bring it into Bina. Bina means comprehension. The power within earth to bring the seed to fruition, make it grow, to make it flourish into something. That thing that was not developed, right? But that's not sufficient. Because you know what? There's a lot of things in life that we know that we should have a desire for. Right? And that's what we're speaking about here. We have the seed of the wisdom. We have even developed the idea in our minds. It's been developed in comprehension, but it doesn't somehow develop into a desire strong enough for that good thing in my life that I should be going for, right? That transcendent thing that's, you know why? Because there's something missing called das or da'at. What is dat? Let me explain by the following story. So back in the day, Jewish farmer who didn't live in a community, he lived outside of the community, and he raises a family. He needs a malamed, he needs a teacher. So he would hire a teacher. This farmer was ignorant that hires a teacher. A teacher would live with him for some part of the year, and we would pay him, of course, for his work teaching his children. And part of the work would be, since he was illiterate back in the day, that when he had to write a letter, he would write it for him. When a letter would be received, he would read it for him. One day a letter comes from his hometown, and the Malamed, this intelligence individual, he's reading the letter. And it's a letter from family, and then he comes to the point, father died. The farmer collapses when he hears those words. So this Chassidim always uses a parable, this story, because it's a parable. Why did the farmer collapse? And not the one who read it. The one who read it is a lot more intelligent. He's capable of reading. He understands it, right? Why did he not faint and the farmer did? How come? It was his father. It was his father. Right? It was his father. Simple. Okay, so what? It was his father. Meaning it's personal. To the Malamed, it wasn't personal. Right? At least relative to the farmer that's his father. It's personal. So folks, there's a lot of things that you've learned in life, and right now you're learning. Right now you're learning. But it could all be information that you comprehend and not personal. You're not taking it and personalizing it and owning it, making it yours, making it your identity and a part of your makeup. Like the doctor that knows really well the ills of smoking and yet smokes. Means he's got the comprehension, the bina, but he doesn't have das. He didn't personalize that information and therefore have an abhorrence to smoking. This is what is necessary in everything of life. We learn something, it needs to impact us. We need to take it personally. And this is the key, the power of das, power of knowledge. It is to make it information relevant and personal. Das is connecting with something in a personal way. Text number 16a, the Alter Rebbe says, Das consists of familiar connection that triggers desire. That's what it does. Thus, the Torah uses the term Das to depict the bond of the verse Adam knew Eve. It means they had relations, intimate relations. In other words, this information becomes intimate with you, just like the relations between Adam and Eve was intimate and a physical bond. So likewise, you bond intimately with this awareness, this comprehension that you have. And that will develop a desire that you will have as a result. It will activate it. Yes, it's calculated because you now understand something with your mind, but it will then, that calculation, that understanding will now punch much higher its weight and develop a desire with you. And the more you understand and the more you personalize, the more it becomes authentically yours, the greater the will be. And you have an exercise to do at home on page 102, exercise 3.1. Please do that at home. And this is what's necessary there. So then we go to text number 16b. The Alter Rebbe again says, the lower form of desire, which is inferior to the higher, the innate desire, can nonetheless trigger the revelation of a higher desire. It can produce that you can have a higher desire. So a person who does not feel a desire to connect to God, or to connect to God by putting on tefillin, as God desires that. I don't feel it. I don't have a desire. Not I don't feel it. I don't have a desire for that. That doesn't mean you can't develop it. You learn about it, and you personalize it, and then it will come. That will come. There's no doubt about it. So, in conclusion, today's class, we began exploring and seeing how angels worship that which is beyond them, or ain't safe. That's what they're cleaving for. That's what they desire, right? Which allowed us to explore why a human being wants a relationship with God, not just merely the way God is just perceived in a leaf, but the transcendence of God is what we desire, what we want, right? And when we understand that that's what we want and we develop that desire, but it might not be so simple because we study, as we're studying here, right? What will that presence do of that Or Ein Sof in my life, the limitless of my desire and my will? It will then bring the functions of my powers of the soul, my intelligence and my emotions to work as a harmonious unit, right? Which that led us to a fascinating discussion on how, when we can understand that when you want God in your life, then that will also bring you to a harmonious and synthesizing and peaceful marriage relationship. Okay, excuse us, gentlemen. Take a seat. Mach sich nicht wissendig, as they say in French. Right? How are you going to have a matrimony that's harmonious? Again, because Or Ein Sof, you transcend yourself because there is God in your life. That's what you desire. That's what you want. You'll have that in the marriage too. Doesn't translate in the marriage because you don't want it strong enough with God, then it won't translate in the marriage. If you want it stronger and you would desire that with God, and that's what God wants is harmonious in the marriage, you'll find harmony in the marriage. That's what's going to happen. There'll be difficulties. There'll be difficulties nonetheless. Why? Because I'm still me and I still want me, what I want. We can overcome ourselves. We can transcend ourselves. Sometimes it may not be innate. It may not be inherent. But how will we do that? Das. We'll comprehend the truth of what God wants and needs from us, transcend that, and personalize it, and make it relevant to me. It's not just an idea, but it's an idea that I am going to live with. And when we do that, we live a very different kind of transcendent form of life. We're able to get beyond the difficulties of all relationships. That doesn't mean there won't be struggles. There won't be difficulties. But all those we'll be able to transcend. We'll be able to connect and to use our inner world of our intelligence and our emotions, and of course through our thought, speech, and deed, to truly connect with the divine. Right. Any questions? Any comments? 1 second. Let's just get over for everybody here. You can see what's going on here. Oops. Look at that, Jason, you're there. So's Richard. Questions, comments? Yes, please.
Rabbi,
yes.
I have a question. As the Alter Rebbe said, the lower form of desire, which is inferior to the higher innate desire, can nonetheless trigger the revelation of a higher desire. How is that possible? How does that come to fruition?
So that's what we just explained, is that when you contemplate, right, that you contemplate about a relationship, let's say about marriage, or whatever it is, or even about God, right? Even about God. You contemplate about the truth and the truth of God, the teachings of God in his Torah. And you think about that, and you contemplate about that, and you personalize it, not just as an idea, an abstract idea, but something that impacts you. So then that will develop the innate desire that you have, that you want to connect to God. So first will come, it'll come for a reason. So for example, I'll give you an example, right? A lot of people have come to my home for Shabbos. And I'd say even more in the past when we had kids around the table, and they would see, oh my gosh, you know how many people have come up to us and said, I want a family exactly like yours, because they saw a bunch of, 10 kids around the table, and they saw, okay, they didn't always get along perfectly, but they saw a beautiful family, harmonious, and say, that's what they want, right? So what did they get? That developed a desire, but that's an external desire. I want that. Is that wanting God? It's what I want, what God gives. He gives a wonderful family when you follow his way. And that's a means to an end, right? I want to have that niceness in my life, right? But through that, when you contemplate it and you think about it and meditate upon that, this is what God gives, then there's more to God than just what he gives. There's him himself. Just like a person in your life, if you meditate upon that person, oh, they're so good, they give me so much. Is that all you appreciate about them, what they give you? That's not very healthy. Think about something beyond that, and you'll be attracted to that person in something beyond what they give you. But where will it come from? First, from what they give you. That will attract you to recognize as something more. And you'll want more, like the angels want more. So you want more in the relationship of just what you're getting, right? So the same thing is over here. If you recognize Shabbos, wow, it's so beautiful. It's such a warm atmosphere. It's, you forget the world out there, and you can just, all the worries that I have in business, I forget about it, and so on. That's contemplating and comprehending and giving you a desire for God's Shabbos that's not innate. It's for a reason. But from that reason, you will come to appreciate it inherently, because a Jew is Shabbos. Shabbos is the Jew. Not just because you're gaining something from it. It's an expression of me. It's a part of my DNA. That's a lot more than just getting something. So that it'll come to a deeper place. But it's not going to come there initially, because initially we're going to see what we have. That's memale, what fills my life. But then we're going to see there's something much more than what fills my life. I want that. And that's inherent. That's beyond us. But yet, it's beyond us, but is us. Because Shabbos is us. God is us. Does that make sense? Yeah?
Yes.
Got that? David.
I just looked at Gematria, and it's very interesting that Ratzon and Tzanon, as you said, it's the same letters, so it's the same Gematria. But there's a third word which has the same Gematria, is Makor. Makor is a source, wellspring, fountain. And actually we address Hashem as a source.
Yeah.
So if we can think that all the blessings will come from the source, the Makor, then our Ratzon, as you described it earlier, will be supported and fulfilled through this Tzanor. So
Beautiful.
speak.
Shkoyach. Very good. Any other questions, comments, any thoughts?
Rabbi?
Yes, doctor.
From Das, we get the other 7 midos, the emotions become from Das.
Yes, exactly.
You were saying also from Keter, we can bypass the Das and get into the emotions straight from the Keter without.
So,
okay.
If you take your chart, you'll see that. Where is it? Oh, Keter, right, is in the middle. Dat is in the middle, and Tiferet is in the middle. Because what is the middle? Is a synthesis, right? So Keter is a synthesis in the sense that it's transcendent and therefore can synthesize that which is lower than it, right? That it's the synthesizer. Tiferet is a synthesizer, beauty, right? Because it synthesizes the 2 emotions of Chesed and Gvura, as we spoke last week. Das is also a synthesizer, because what as Roman said, it synthesizes intelligence and emotions, because it takes from what you know and it gives you an emotional connection to it. And that's how it makes it personal, right? That's why the farmer fainted, because he's emotionally attached to his father. It's his father. Because of the emotional attachment, that's why he fainted. So the awareness that he had is personal. Das brought it to that point. So that's why Das is in the middle, because it's synthesizing intelligence and emotions, bringing them together. Yes.
Can Kesser then go straight to Hesed without going to Das?
Does it go straight?
Yeah, without going through intellect.
By the way, whoever has to leave is welcome to leave, because the class is over. But for anybody wants to have further discussion, and is welcome to stay. Yeah. Yeah, I know the people have to leave, so I don't want you to and we're over time already, so my apologies. So, sorry,
very
go
much, Rabbi.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Roman.
No, so my question was, from Kesser, can you go directly to emotion of Hesed without going through the intellect to get to emotionally feel Hesed?
That's a good question. It's asking, can you go straight from Kesser to the emotions? In some ways you could.
Okay.
On some ways you could. In other words, the will is so strong, it develops an emotional attachment. It won't be very common. It won't be very usual, because usually it's going to go through some awareness, that awareness is going to bring it to the emotions, which is Das. But there's a possibility there, yes.
Thank you, Rabbi.
David.
On the Hasidim, not Lubavitcher,
yeah,
going in their service of Hashem directly to emotions. Well, we go through intellect trying to understand and connect from that point. So
they're going through without Das.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Directly to emotions.
No, but it's still an awareness that's in Bina, but it's not really a strong Das. Right.
So I want to thank you because
we're online and people are here, so you can call me, okay?
There was one interesting observation about Chatan B'Kala, and you spoke about what's involved in it. So I looked at Gematria interestingly.
Well, but just one second. I just want to make sure that before that there's any, I don't want to leave if there's any questions. Just 1 second.
Sure.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any other? Okay, so we'll continue. All right, folks. Next week, believe it or not, we go further, beyond. We ain't finished. Amazing. Thank you all. God bless you.